Hey everyone, today I am recreating a video, in fact recreating my first video, which was doing Kendra's card challenge number 4. For this you get a set of instructions and you cut down 6 pieces of pattern paper, and for this particular card challenge you make 17 unique cards. Now, when I did my very first video, I put it to this monotonous music. I only did a little bit of a voiceover. So this time I'm going to do my current style of voiceover and just recreate it because I really love these cards. Here you can see that I'm using some Kaisercraft paper. This is a 6x6 paper pad called Workshop. Definitely not available anymore, but you might have it in your stash, who knows. You can use any paper pad that really doesn't have a lot of directional papers. I also use some navy for matting, and then you could see that I had some 5 1/4 by 4 inch matting panels, and I use those a lot when I do Kendra's Card Challenge videos. Right here, I'm just going to show you cutting down one piece of the pattern paper. You can see on the right hand side that the sketch gives you really good instructions about which cut to do first. And off to the right hand side of my screen, I actually have 17 blank cards set up. And as I cut the pieces down, and they are numbered on the sketch, I just place those pieces with each of the blank cards, and so I can then create them one by one and do my little twist on each card design as I go. I do find that when I do these card sketches, sometimes I struggle with one of the layouts, one of the designs, and I just put that aside and then I come back to it a little later if I need a little bit more time. And through the beauty of editing, when I put them back together, I always put them back together in order. So it's just easier for you to follow that I create card 1 through 17. And I will say that this is the footage from my very first video, but I have just completely re-edited it using some of the new ways of editing that I've learned, which are, of course, very, very basic. But let me know if you think that this is of interest. I do have a few of my other earlier videos that were pretty popular, but the music and things that I put to them were not popular by any means. So let me know in the comments below if seeing these types of videos, even though the paper pad's not available anymore, and you still should be able to get, I think, the card sketch from Kendra's Card Challenge, from Cards by Kendra. You may need to join as a Patreon. I'm really not sure how it works, but I'll put a link below so you can go and check that out. That I have already downloaded all of the Kendra's Card Challenge, so I can do all of the different ones, even if it's not the current one that's live. All right, so for card number 1, it is a really simple sketch you can see on the top right, and I'm just cutting down all of the layers and making sure that I'm using this dark navy so that I have a really clear contrast around that white box on the front and anything else that I'm matting with it. The key thing is to make sure that whatever matting layer you're using matches with the paper pad, and in this instance, the navy was the best bet. One of the things I really love about this particular sketch is that it does have pieces of paper, or big pieces of pattern paper, that don't have a matting layer. That's quite unusual in a lot of card sketches, and I find that that makes it something that I'd be more likely to reuse, because I'm trying to find card sketches where I don't have to do so many matting layers, because as a bulk card maker, that can actually take a ton of time. Now, if I recall correctly, that giant hello had been in my stash for a very long time, and one of the great things about using these card sketches is I grab all these unique things out of my stash, and there's always a card that I can find that it'll work with. So this is card number 1. For card number 2, there was a couple of options for creating this card. One is to do a fun fold like I'm doing here, where it folds in from the sides, and then you put a belly band over the top so you can slide that off to open up the card. I had originally thought that that is what I would create, because I thought that's a super interesting and unique design. But partway through, I actually did change my mind. So here I'm doing the matting layers in the navy, and then I'm going to load the pattern paper on top, which is a glimmery kind of silver paper. It's absolutely gorgeous in real life. And then I realized, well, if I just glue the band across the middle without it actually being something that removes, I will completely close the card. So what I decided to do instead is fake it. So what I have done here is I've got a standard A2 card. I have not done the unusual fold. It just opens up at one of the edges. And then I'm just putting these 2 strips down the middle like you would on a standard card front. And I'm using my board here to help me line everything up in the middle and adding my beautiful little happy birthday sentiment. I feel like this is one of those card designs that you really could use over and over again, and I might resurrect it to use it for my little scrap box that has 1.5 inch strips. They will work absolutely perfectly on either side of the card with a matting layer. Now on to card number 3. For this one, I'm able to use a lot of the pattern papers that do not have direction on them. So I do choose that at the beginning of the project, but there is in this video one of the pattern papers that has a whole lot of bicycles on it. And in the Kendra's card sketch, you can actually see which of how you cut the paper to be able to decide if you need directional paper or not. Now that I'm a little bit wiser and I've done a few more of these challenges, I just pick all paper that can go any direction. And normally things that have a bit of a two-tone or something on them that creates a really, really nice, interesting background to a card. But then I get that interest by adding different embellishments and things on top. So you will notice that my style has probably changed a little bit since I created these cards way back when. But I will say that the nice sort of simpleness to these cards is maybe something that I still do. I don't create a lot of bows and a lot of bling on my cards, but I do tend to add maybe some embellishments or some die cuts that I've coloured in or something that I've purchased as part of a paper pack that, or as part of a series that does match the paper pack. So with this one, it's just got quite a few matting layers on here and then this banner on top. And in this Kaisercraft pack, you do get extra pages. I think there's 4 extra pages that have a whole series of sentiments on them. So let's celebrate your day. There's a few that actually said Happy Father's Day, which was kind of nice. And I just used probably one of those pages in all of these 17 cards. So one thing I'll say about Kaisercraft paper packs is they do seem to have a whole lot of extra paper compared to others. For this card, I will say that I made another unusual choice, and that is when I put these banners on, for some reason I left a gap between the navy matting layer and the banners. So they kind of just look like they're floating. So I would not do that again. So if I had to recreate, and in fact, that's a good question. Should I create a whole new set of cards using the exact same card sketch challenge, but with a new paper pad and see what I would do differently? I think definitely for this one, it does make sense to actually have the banners connected to the panel on the left. I don't know why I made that choice, so maybe I just didn't look at the sketch closely enough. But here you go. This is card number 4. On to card number 5. This is a sketch I can really see myself using again. I love anything that has scraps of pattern paper that get put to good use, and I love circles. So I have an awesome video on my channel that is how to create bulk circle sentiments using the Fawn Magic Messages set. They have 4 different stamp sets and they all have different types of messages. Let's see if I can remember what they are. There's the standard one, Magic Messages. There's more Magic Messages. There is Spring Magic Messages. That's a tongue twister. And then I think the other one is Holiday, and so it has like Christmas and New Year and a few other things. And I have all 4, and I absolutely love using them with my Tim Holtz stacked circle dies. It means that I can do 5 of them at a time. In terms of the die cutting of the circles, and they are the perfect sizes to be able to create not only the perfect circle for the stamp sentiment, but also the next layer to be able to do the border around it so that it is a stacked and matted circle. I will put links below to everything that I've talked about today or everything that I've used to create this series of cards. But you can see here with this happy birthday, that you could recreate this card super easily with scraps. Absolutely, definitely. For card number 6, you can see that the card sketch actually has quite a bit of space between the pattern papers, so it does take up the majority of the card front. I, with these types of cards, just go with my gut, and I'll add the first piece, and then I'll add just another piece of pattern paper with whatever I feel like is the right level of space, and then I'll just do all of the others so that they are consistent. And you'll see that when I'm done here, I've used the same number of pieces of paper, so I've got the 5 strips, but I have not covered nearly as much of the pattern paper as the card sketch has indicated, and that's 100% okay. I decided that I was going to add something of interest on top of the paper, and that meant that I've been able to add a sentiment, and I've offset it to the right-hand side, and it absolutely works perfectly. Now you can see here I've also put some extra cardstock behind it, and that's just so that the bottom of that sentiment won't dip and it'll be nice and flat on the card. So that is card number 6. For card number 7, it really just has these 2 pieces of pattern paper and then some kind of sentiment or piece of interest in the middle of the card. I don't normally use ovals, so I have used something different on this card, but I'm also not a huge fan of just leaving random gaps in the middle of the pattern paper. If it was exactly the same as the border around the edge or that grey matting layer, I would have been fine. But I don't like leaving big gaps or inconsistent gaps. So I found myself some scrap of the pattern paper I mentioned earlier with the bicycles on it. And one row of bicycles was 100% perfect to just fill that space. And then I've got my little Happy Father's Day little banner thing here that came from the extra pages of the paper pad. And that is card number 7. For card number 8, this one does have a couple of little layers here, and then the stripes across the middle. Do I add 2 extra stripes? Do I put them on top? Do I put them in the middle? I did try a couple of different options here, and then in the end I decided to just go the simple route, which is add the pattern papers directly onto the card front. And then I've created a strip across the middle that would cover that gap and really sit on top of these 2 pieces of pattern paper so that everything looks that it's nicely connected. It just meant I didn't have to fiddle around with small scraps of paper and the small strips, and so it has that separation of the pattern papers there, and I didn't have to mat everything, so it worked out super well in the end. You can also see that I'm doing the trick of putting some cardstock behind because that paper strip that it's on top of has a matting layer as well. It means that if you don't put this, it will dip down. So sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't, but if there's a couple of layers of paper, then you'll generally see that I'll put this on top. Then I'm adding on my quick happy birthday sentiment, and I have completed card number 8. I mentioned earlier that I really like when cards are symmetrical, and when there's an uneven gap between the top and the sides, it just doesn't work well for me. So for this card sketch here, it did have uneven mats across the top and along, I guess, the vertical and the horizontal. So I combated that by cutting out some thin strips of pattern paper from the same paper pack. And then because I wasn't exactly sure what the spacing was, and I didn't bother to measure it out perfectly, I just laid those down in between the 3 pattern papers, and I started at the end that had the card fold, because if it was shorter than the card, then I could trim it off. And actually that's exactly what ended up happening. So I could have put a bit of a gap in between those strips, but I didn't. So no one will really know it's not the perfect A2 size card. So I just trimmed it off and then added my happy birthday to it. And then because I didn't have those uneven borders, I was much happier with how this one turned out. So that is card number 9. Card number 10 is an incredibly simple sketch. It literally just has the pattern paper with a matting layer on top and bottom, not on the sides. And then because I used a matting layer, I'm literally just loading this up and then adding something interesting on the top right-hand corner. Again, a really great sketch if you've got scrap paper and you just want to use things up relatively quickly. Again, I've used one of these sentiments that came from those spare pages. Traditionally, I would have normally created a circle if I reused this sketch, but for me, using that wishing you a day filled with adventure was the perfect size to fit in that top corner. For card number 11, it needs a 1/2 inch strip. And because Kaisercraft is 6.5 by 6.5 paper pads, it means that you always have this extra that's left over. So I was able to sort through that and pick whichever one I thought would match better with the card design. And so for this, I picked the rusty kind of coloured one that matched with this blue rectangle. And then I've added these little banners, but I did them a little bit more staggered than in the card sketch. I'm not sure if I like that. Maybe I do. I think it adds a little bit more interest to the card. And then the one thing that I get called out on all the time is any time that I put tags on a card like this and I don't put string, I get called out as that's not how you're supposed to do it. And I think I agree. I think I finally agree that on card 11, I should have had some twine or string coming out of the tag. And for all the other ones in this video, if I recreate or use another paper pad, I promise I will put twine or string. For card number 12, this one is similar to the previous where the matting layer doesn't go all the way around, it's just at the top and the bottom, but it has the 2 pattern papers on it. So what I've done here is I've lined them up and I've made them connect, and then which means I really haven't followed the sketch from that perspective, but it just meant that I didn't have to fuss around with the size of the pattern paper and making sure everything was perfect. And I've still kept the intent by having a rectangle and then, of course, adding on a circle sentiment. So this sketch I would possibly use again. I'm not too sure. There are so many good ones to pick from in this particular series. This is one of my favourite sentiments, though, that you are brilliant and absolutely amazing. Such a positive and energetic sentiment. On to card number 13. Now, this one has loads of banners, and at this point in my card making, I really was not great at trimming down the banner portion at the bottom, like the little, the little banner piece. And I have gotten a little better at it with practice, but I often in these types of card sketches would shy away from it and just use a strip of paper rather than a banner itself. Are there things in a card sketch that you always change? So for me, I used to avoid banners, but now I do them. I don't often put the little dots on a sketch where people use like little circle dies or embellishments, and I basically never use ovals. So there's a few quirks to when I create cards of things that I will skirt around. Do you have any of those when you're doing card making? Put a comment below. I'm really interested to hear what are the things that you avoid or adapt from when you're doing some bulk card making or trying to follow along with a sketch. Or, you know what, it might even be, are there sketches that you avoid and what is the reason that you would avoid using them? Okay, so for card 13, I really love this block happy birthday sentiment. It's a very nice and bold one, and it's added enough interest to the card without me having any other embellishments on here other than these banners that are part of the original sketch. So in the end, I think I do like this one. I think this worked out well, and I was practicing my cutting out banner technique, so I'm glad that I didn't avoid it when I was creating this card. This is card number 13. I mentioned earlier that I'm always looking for card sketches where I don't have to do matting layers, and interestingly enough, 3 years ago when I created these cards, I actually put matting layers on the sketch that didn't need matting layers. So I think that I just really wanted to make sure that I had a contrast between the pattern paper and that grey matting layer. And I think it's just something about it does look a little bit more finished. But now if I was creating this card again, I would try it out and be a bit more bold, and I would do it without putting matting layers on these 2 pieces of pattern paper. Now, with the happy birthday that I've put on top, I have matted that in the darker colour with the black, which is as per the card sketch. And then here I am again with my little tags with no string. But I promise next time, again, I've promised many times in this video, I will use string moving forward. So 2 tags onto this one, and this is card number 14. For card number 15, this is with basically a few of the smaller pieces of pattern paper, and you tend to find that with these card sketches, some of them have really big pieces, and then some have the smaller pieces that are, off the end of something that was needed for one of the other card designs. But the thing I love about this, again, is it's so simple, and it would be absolutely excellent to just use all your scrap papers. So I have this habit. If I have used a pattern paper pad and I've only got smaller pieces left, the first thing I will do is I will mat every single piece in white. I will then get a backing panel in a contrasting colour. So often I use Kraft, but whatever pattern paper it is, and then I will just grab all of the smaller pieces and lay them out higgledy-piggledy all over the backing panel until I've got a design that I like. Then I add a sentiment and I'm done. And so you're actually able to create some pretty cute looking cards just from using your leftovers with the value of a matting layer. Now on to cards 16 and 17. These ones are actually exactly the same. So there's 16 unique card sketches. But for these ones, I originally, when I did this, I tried to cut all of the papers that were underneath at an angle. And then I worked out, well, actually, I probably don't need to be that precise about it because I can have them go underneath that triangle and then lay the triangle on top. So I don't have to do a whole ton of precision cutting. When I'm attaching these to the card, basically you can see I'm lining them up along the bottom row of the card, or the bottom line of the card, so that they're all perfect. And at the top they're a bit of a jumbled mess, but that's okay because that's where I'm going to put the triangle over the top. And you won't see that they're all different lengths because it'll be completely covered by the other pattern paper. So that worked out really nicely. It made it really simple to do the card layout, and you can't really see any bumps underneath the pattern paper that's on top. I have put another video here that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.